And good evening, good day, good morning to everybody on Twitch. This is ED-UCATION from TRACKILICIOUS, joined here by Danny Baisden from Area 52. Hey, Danny. Oh, wait, I had you muted. Okay, they can hear you now.
Hey! How's it going?
Good, good. We're just taking a minute here, waiting for Ed. He should be joining us shortly, but we are going to do a track guide on Nürburgring today for the GT4s. I don't know about people out there, but I find certain sections of the Nürburgring GP track quite challenging for myself, and hopefully we'll go into some of the details that you and Ed use to find that precise angle and precision to go through the corners and find the tents that people are looking for.
Yeah,
So,
this track is very difficult. Sorry.
no, that's okay. Yeah, I was gonna say, what would you say? Do you find is maybe the challenging portion of the track for you, and maybe something that is easier where you're able to be very consistent?
For me, braking. The McLaren already is struggling with brakes to begin with, so braking points and keeping track of those are probably the most difficult for me, especially going into turn one. Turn one is one of those that you don't have any really clear reference points, so I'm kind of excited to hear what Ed has to say about that. Because you never want to use a shadow, and you don't really want to use any tire marks on the track. So excited to hear what he has to say about that one.
Yeah, I think my reference. I've yet to hop into our GT4 this season for Nürburgring, but I feel like I've always used the marker on the left side, the 100-meter board. I think it is that comes at you pretty quickly, and it is a bit of a downhill going into there, so it can be misleading as to how early you actually need to brake, so you don't push too far into the corner.
Yeah, and you also have to keep in mind with this corner, you have to be very mindful of the line that you're taking during the braking zone. If you hug the left hand side, you're going to come up long it every time. Especially if you get up onto the curb, you're going to lose out some braking distance. If you start a little further to the right, not mid track, but a little bit further to the right, and do your best to keep a straight braking line, you're going to end up in a lot better place.
So so
So it's tough.
I actually have the game up on our server, so maybe we could have you get your car started and maybe give us a placement as to where you would place your car going into turn one, braking point for turn one, turn-in point for turn one. Let's get started there as we wait for Ed, who's I'm sure prepared something with a little bit more detail. If I could
You
put
would
you
put
on,
me on the spot like that, wouldn't you?
if I could put you on the spot, I was just gonna say,
Yeah,
I,
no, not a problem.
I apologize, everyone watching. We have a bit of a real life delay with Ed, but he should be here shortly. I just wanted to get things started for you guys and get some
Yeah, I think
information
we
out
were
to you.
all thrown off a little bit because we had the 949 Miata race just before this, and I just totally blinked out once I saw food. So let me get
Jealous.
on track here.
Rocking that crazy Area 52 livery, looking great.
I know Fetty did a great job for me.
You guys are a big fan of the purple, huh? It's a common
Okay,
theme in Area
so
52.
going into turn one, there is a couple reference points. Let me back up just a little bit. Now that I'm actually paying attention, this is generally the line that I would take going into turn one. You'll notice that I'm not hugging that left hand side. If you do that, like I said, you're gonna end up braking long, and you're gonna miss the turn completely. I only know this because of the practice I did last night. But going into turn one, you see the red and white marker there on the left hand wall.
So you're referring to the actual barrier there.
Yeah, exactly. You see where the guy's waving his little green flag. So there's a white and red marker there, and that's a good reference point for your braking. Then there's also the start of the access road there, where it turns into a little bit of a triangle, or right there at the triangle point.
Yep.
And then also you can judge based off of the 100 board. So there's a few reference points there for you. This one is probably the hardest, and you'll notice in the race, this is where most of the incidents happen. You're going to have a lot of people that miss this turn, and it turns into a bowling alley. And I think I heard Ed join. He can definitely agree to that statement, I think. Yeah, so this is generally the line that I take in, and I'll end up touching the a little bit of the curb on my way into the apex of the corner.
So we did have Ed join. Ed, you got your stuff set up? Your microphone's up?
I think so. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Hi.
We
how
can
are
hear you just fine.
All right. Sorry about that, guys.
That's okay.
I am just loading the replay now, and looks like, Danny, was that turn 1?
We are at turn 1, yes, sir.
All right, cool. Sorry, everybody.
My nemesis.
Things.
So I'm actually very curious to see what Ed has to say about turn 1. So we've so
I am
far
too.
referenced the orange and white barrier marker with the guy flagging, and basically the start of the triangle where that service road is. Kind of good reference points. Going in car, it's a little bit different when you hop out of car and back into car, so I'm trying to give everyone both visuals. So just before the 100 marker, and then Danny, you say that you're actually about, let's say, half a car's width to a car's width away from the edge of track, pointed towards where the eventual curbing starts.
Yeah, so you can, if you're aiming between the grandstands and the yellow crane, you're on a really good line going into the braking zone, because that's going to end up putting you right up against the outside curb, and your car's going to be able to stop in time. I was initially trying to hug the left-hand side too much, and I was missing my braking, or missing the corner altogether. I was ending up washing out all the way to the gravel at some times. So, yeah, this is a tricky one, at least for me. And then the next following momentum corners, I guess you could say, not necessarily heavy braking zones, but the next 3 or 4 corners are definitely very technical, and really set you up for the rest of your lap.
So while I'm pulling up Ed's replay here, maybe you want to take that line down into where you would direct your car into turn 1 and where you'd start turning in.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm already on the brakes here, and I would be aiming, as you see the curb come into focus. You're aiming still right between the stands and the crane here, and right now you would be turning into that apex. The goal is to get as late of an apex as you can to get a run up this hill. So you're going to try and cut that without getting any warnings or anything, but you want to cut that apex as much as you can to set you up, so that way you're on the right-hand side of the track for the next double left-hander.
So what I found really interesting is your reference point being the stands actually way out where. So that's kind of interesting to have a view that far out. Something I wouldn't have noticed, but it's a good thing that you pointed it out, because that's a very good reference to keep your eye straight going into the corner, not having to veer off to the side to reference some markers.
Yeah, the other one that I found helpful is, and I agree, and sorry if you guys already covered this, but it's a super tricky corner. You always seem to either brake too late or too early, and rarely hit it. But what I found to be best is right where the access road starts to like peel off. So right there, you see there's light gray, and the road starts to veer off to the left a little bit. That's a pretty good reference point for me. as opposed to trying to judge distance off the 100 board or like anything else.
Yeah, so that's something
Did
Danny
you
said
guys
as well,
cover
right?
that already?
Yeah, the
Okay.
little
All right.
triangle. So that's a good
Little triangle.
good idea.
Yep. Yeah. As soon as that gray part starts like expanding, is usually pretty solid. So sorry to bring up something that you guys already did.
No, I
No,
was
no.
actually curious what your breaking point was because I've been guessing. So using shadows like you shouldn't be.
All right, I am just in process of getting Ed's stream up here. If you guys give me 1 second, please, I will get it up for everybody. Screen.
Eric, while you're doing that, I can always circle around and then we can do like a live lap, or I don't know if we have time for that or anything, but otherwise I can just return back to the pits. You tell me what works best.
So I think I got Ed's replay up here, so we can go ahead
Cool.
and see what Ed's doing. I am
Okay.
going to have you return to the pits there. Okay.
Yep.
So, all right, Ed, we are watching your lap there now.
Okay, great. So it sounds like already covered pretty much all of turn one. The only thing I'll say, just as a transition point into the next set of corners, is I try not to send it out too wide because you're just going to mess up your entry into corner number 2. So for me, like coming off about midway, and then try to fight back toward the right hand side of the track to set up a good entry into this next corner here. And well, I guess what I'll do is let me do the flyover, and then I'll do a let's see here. Sorry, I'm working on like a window mode here. It's coming across 1080p, right, Eric?
Yeah, it's looking pretty good. And
Alright, cool.
while we have all of our voices out there, if anyone could give us a quick audio check, everything's sounding okay out there. Low, too high, who's low, who's high, and at that, Ed, you could keep going.
All right, cool. So this corner here, for me, I try to take a little bit of like a neutral entry. So I'm not trying to enter wide, or I'm not trying to hug it. It's a quite a sweeping corner, and I tend to just again approach it sort of neutral. So if we're in the car, I'll just play through this full speed, and then there's really no braking point here. This is maybe a little bit dabs on the brakes, but it's mainly a coast, just to get the front end settled. So you see a little dab, and then a little bit of a maintenance throttle. And I try to miss, like if I'm going to miss hitting the curb, especially in the GT4s. The curb doesn't seem to really impact you. You don't really get loose or anything on it. So I try to like aim for maybe just brushing the curb, and if I miss a little bit, running up the curb is not going to do much harm. And then like a lot of corners here at the Nürburgring, most of it's patience, right? They're somewhat long sweeping corners, and a lot of them have decreasing radius in the sense that like the entry is a little bit wider, and then it tightens up as you go through the corner. And I think that's what makes this place fairly tricky, is because if you're not patient, you're going to end up in the gravel or way off and get a track cut because of the way most of the corners are set up. So in this corner here, I'm aiming to hit the curb, then wait, and then get on the throttle and let the car drift out to the right-hand side here. See, I got a little loose and had to correct. But you can run about halfway. The halfway point of the car can be right to the green, where it transitions from green to the red and white curbing without a track cut. Any further, you'll end up getting a track cut. And then in the rain, if it happens to rain, just don't go on this green at all, because you'll be sailing way deep into the next corner here.
So from what it sounded like, your entry into it in terms of braking point and turning point is one of those feel type corners, right? There isn't really a super clear braking marker or anything that could be used.
Correct. I don't use a braking marker. It's more of just looking toward the apex, because you got kind of an uphill, transition here. Depending on how you get out of turn 1, you're rarely going to hit the same spot on entry into turn 2. So for me, this is more of a feel. It's like as soon as you kind of crest over this hill here, and get to the top of it is usually when I hit the brakes and just start coasting.
How about you, Danny? Any particular marker that you use there, or kind of same as what Ed uses?
Unfortunately, no. This is a really hard sequence of corners because after that hairpin, you want to get as much speed and momentum back as you possibly can. You want to be far right on the track, and this is all because going into that first left-hander, at least in GT3s, it's more of a lift-off coast corner than it is a lift-off braking zone corner. And you'll notice in Ed's replay, he does a nice light tap of the brake just to get the car to rotate in. And again, this is all happening so quickly that it's really hard to get any kind of reference point. I mean, when you're supposed to make the turn in and when you're supposed to tap the brakes, it's a lot of feel. However, one thing I can mention is that I will listen out for the RPMs and where they are in the rev range, and that will help me be a little bit more consistent on when I turn in. So it'll vary depending on your car. But once you find it, you can get pretty consistent as far as, okay, my car is revving at this RPM, I lift off and turn in, so on and so forth. So it is a very technical little portion of the track.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's that's something we talked about last time around. For some of our newer drivers, trying to get the consistency in the exit of the previous turn defines what rev range you are in. So that's something to be aware of when you're trying to use sound to determine your turning point or braking point. It's a good added reference, but just be aware that if you are still working on your consistency coming out of a particular corner, that might vary going into the next one.
Yeah, and real quick, the only thing I'd say is, like, if you're looking for a reference, sort of they have this runoff patch, or I don't know if it's brick or whatever on the right-hand side where it's grass and then this weird transition and then grass again, and right around this area, or if the track's optimal, again, don't use this as a thing all the time, right, a few car lengths before the track starts getting dark.
That's exactly what I was going to say. The little patch on the right-hand side.
This is what it looks like in car too. So like, again, field of view and stuff changes, but like midway up the patch, from what you can see up, at least the 570S dashboard.
Yep.
So I'll play this through full speed on the exterior, and then we'll head on to the next corner.
So much patience that's required just to get the right acceleration point there.
A lot. As you can see, I ended up having to get off the throttle a little bit because I knew I was going to go a little wide. And I still ended up losing the back end and almost going a little bit wide. This is about as much as you can go without a track guide, by the way.
Yeah.
So, all right,
as long as you keep.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. As long as you keep 2 tires on the red and white, you should be all right.
Yep. Gotcha. So coming down into here, I think it's sort of the name of the game for Nürburgring. There's not a lot of reference markers. Coming into this corner 3, I tend to use how much is left in the green, to be honest, when I start braking. So from an in-car perspective, this much, again, field of view and stuff is going to change things, but I try to get an idea of, okay, I'm this close to the green ending, and then I'm going to get on the brakes. This corner here is very, it's kind of a tricky corner. You can use a ton of the inside curb. So if we fast forward a little bit, you're hard on the brakes, heavy trail brake, and then you can use the inside curb and more. I have to come up with a name for what this is, so we keep running across, and I keep saying like weird transition. If anybody in chat knows what the heck that is, let me know. But you can really use a lot, and yeah, you can even use some grass on the inside without getting the track cut, and it seems to help rotate the car. And this corner is a sort of a transitionary corner, at least on exit. Your goal is to set yourself up for a good entry on the following corner, so I guess turn 4. I should have brought up the track map. Let me see if I can make sure I have the right.
We have a suggestion for that inside material called Grasscrete.
Grasscrete. All right, there we go. Coined it. TM.
I like it. I like it.
That would be. Let's see if I get the right track. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, that's 3. Okay. 4. Oh, the little kinks 5. Okay, cool. So so use all that grasscrete that you can, and help rotate the car, and definitely don't swing it out wide. You want to keep it tight because you want to get a really good entry and hence exit off corner number 4, in order to set yourself up for a relatively medium length straightaway. And so let me run this through full time, and then I'll run it through in chase view. I'll go back.
There is another breaking point that I use, and you'll notice on the left-hand side as you're going into the corner, there's that access road. So you can use that as a breaking point too. As soon as it starts going past as you're coming up to it.
Are you actively looking for that, or are you like, at least in mine, I can't see. Like, are you looking for when it disappears?
Yeah, exactly. When it hits that A pillar, and then I'm already looking at that apex, so it's in my field of view.
That's interesting. So the good thing about Danny's suggestion there is that typically, or oftentimes, there are brake markers that we use that are quite far from where you're looking. But in this instance, it's actually to your benefit because not only is it there, but you're also looking at it's in the direction of the corner apex, so it's quite beneficial for it to be so close.
Yep. Yeah, good point. I'll have to
And use it. Yeah, use it as it varies because FOVs and cockpits, etc. So use it with caution, but that's certainly another one that you can use.
Yep. And then for reference, I believe you can go even further than I'm going here without a track cut, maybe another tire width or something, without getting any sort of track cut. So this is a little bit conservative.
Yeah, you definitely can. But what you did here is actually pretty good. The only reason why is on the other side of that curb, it does drop off, and you can, in theory, hook your tire a little bit, and it'll help bring you around. That's when the car will start rotating the most.
Gotcha. Cool. Alrighty. I going into 4. Again, this is one where the goal is to exit 3 in a way that allows you to maximize middle and exit speed on corner number 4. So for me, this is again, not a really good braking reference. I believe I just brushed the brakes, if I'm not mistaken here. Let me just check. Oh no, it's just a lift. So it's just a lift onto the curb for me. And for it's all about the angle that I get onto the curb. I don't know, Danny, if it's the same for you, but like if you hit the curb at a different angle, it can really hurt the car. It'll bounce, even the GT4s. And so I'm kind of looking, not at a lift point, but more so again at apex to try to figure out, okay, I came off corner 3, this wide, and let me shoot, let me look at where I'm at, where I want to hit the curb in order to hit it in the right spot so that I can kind of launch over. It's not the best term, but ride it in a way where I avoid the bumps and then straight line the exit as much as possible.
Yeah, this is one of those curbs you really have to either commit to or avoid. And by commit, I mean you have to eat a lot of that inside curb in order to absorb some of the shock that the car experiences, because otherwise it will lose traction and it will bounce if you just slightly touch the curb with your inside wheels. Otherwise, avoid it to get the best exit. But you're absolutely right. This is a tricky one, and it can either benefit a couple tenths or it can eat a couple tenths. And another important thing, well, I'm sure you're going to get to it here in a second, so I might as well just shut up.
Oh, you're fine. You're right.
But it will either cause you to get a warning in a blink of an eye, or it will benefit you too. So the exit of this corner is a pain in the butt.
Yeah, that's for sure. Run it through in car first. And then, as Danny alluded to, the exit here, I think that's about as far as you want to go without a track cut. For me, I think it's the like. I'm trying to see if I can get a good reference here. I think it's half the car, at least like when I'm in the car. Let's see. Okay, I think you just don't want to go over that white line with the right-hand side of the car.
Yeah, so
I think
two
that'll
wheels,
be a track cut.
2 wheels past that white line is okay. 4 wheels is where it gives you the cut.
Yeah, or on it, I think will give you a cut too. It's pretty. A lot of track cuts happen here, so you'll have, like Danny said, you have a lot of opportunity to pass people if you're fighting for them. If you can get them to go in the corner and deke them out a little bit where they mess up the corner, they're gonna have either if they're up on their warnings, lift in order to avoid a track cut here, and then you'll have the momentum trying to passing them there.
Yeah, I've definitely gotten a few drive-throughs from that corner. So
Yeah, but it's also one where if you have track cuts to give, again, not advocating cutting, but hand your track cut card in and get a good run on somebody if you're kind of stuck behind them down that straightaway.
absolutely, you got three for a reason.
Yeah, right. So here, I'll play this full speed on the exit here. Cool. So you got a long run down, or medium long run down this straightaway before you get to turn number 6. The little kink that there is 5 technically, I think. So 6 is the next left-hander. This corner here, I tend to look at the curbing on the right-hand side. You have the cones, which probably will last a lap, maybe, if that. And so
if you're lucky.
Yeah, if you're lucky, I like to use the start of the next color curbing here. You see, it's kind of like it's not grasscrete, but it's kind of like it looks like brick. Or I'll probably zoom in and see exactly what that is.
Yeah, it looks like it turns brick.
Yeah, little pavers or something. So I use that as a reference point when I'm in the cockpit, because it looks like right before those occur is when I start braking. But the access road is a pretty good break point too. Usually it's like right sort of in the start of the access point, or somewhere in the middle. In car, it kind of feels like when you're going full speed that like you get to this curb and you start braking, but in reality, it's usually a little bit further back. And this corner here, again, is sort of a transition corner because you set yourself up for the next right-hander and then subsequently longer straightaway. So it's similar to the pair of corners we just saw before. But this one's a little more unique because you can really gain a lot of time here or lose a lot of time. It's a cambered corner, so you kind of want to throw it in. The car can stick a little bit more than you think it can, as long as you kind of keep it close to the curb. If you're too far out, it's just going to push wide. But if you kind of throw it in, and it's a good trail braking corner, I feel like, where it's light trail brake, and then you hook, you kind of hook you don't apex early, but you get to that curb and and the camera kind of keeps you on that curb a little bit more than you think you can. So I'll run this through full speed, and then let me back up actually here. So for me, try to get close to the curb. Try not to hit it. I think if you tap it a little bit, it's okay, but you don't really want to run up on it. And for me, I try to exit this corner in the middle of the track. I try not to use all the right-hand side because then I'm just clawing to get back left, and then I miss my braking point for the right-hander, which is turn 7. Which is Ford curve, it looks like. So when I exit, I try to exit middle and then try to get back to the left-hand side to set myself up for entry into 7. Danny, what do you use from a braking point perspective, the access run?
I think I pretty much copied you here. Yeah, so don't be afraid to kill the cones. And you'll notice that you don't actually kill all of them. They sometimes stick around, but and then like you had mentioned, I try to break what feels like to me after that turn to the um, I guess that would be to the next circuit. But anyway, at that transition, I feel like that's where I'm braking, but I'm probably braking a little sooner than that.
Yeah.
And you're wanting to trail brake all the way into the apex of that cambered corner. Like you said, don't touch that inside curb. It can be very unforgiving very quickly. Sometimes you can get away with it, but just try to avoid it. And then, try to stay as far left as you possibly can to set you up for the next set of corner or next corner. And going into that, I don't. You haven't made it to that corner yet. That's right. I gotta make sure.
Oh,
I'm
that's okay. I
keeping
probably
pace.
should. No, you're fine. I probably should combine some of the corners that are quick and combos into one, right? Instead of breaking it up, but maybe we can experiment with that next time. But it's kind of a per track thing, I feel like.
Yeah.
But okay, let me run this through full here, and then. Yeah, as Danny said, like a longer trail break, and the car kind of hugs the inside, and then coming off middle or so. Again, don't if you need it, you can use the runoff. If you got too hot, you can get a little bit off without it getting bumpy. But here we go, the grass crete. You can get on a little bit, but I wouldn't advise it because you're just going to mess up this next corner. So stay to the middle and then fight to get back to the. Oh, of course I did it. I was waiting for when that was going to happen. Stay to the middle and then fight to get back to the left-hand side for corner number 7. And it's funny, Danny, you mentioned breaking points. Like everything always feels like you're going deeper than you think. You have like NASCAR racers and stuff being like, "Oh, I took that flat," and then telemetry started, and you're like, "You ain't flat, you're lifting." And like, what? And then same thing. Like it's just a timing thing with where you anticipate the car to be when you start, and then depending on what view you use, it's always like 5 meters back from where you think you're doing. You're not quite as brave as you think you are once you go back and look at the telemetry.
Exactly, and watching you play this through, I'm like, man, you really need to get onto the throttle way soon to get the car rotated to get into the corner, because you can be. This is one you can be too cautious as much as you can be too brave. And I just realized, I probably do wait a little longer to get on throttle than I actually think I do.
Yeah,
so it's good that you mentioned that.
And then going into this corner, again, common theme. There's not really a good braking point here. This, for me, again, is another feel, like while I'm in the car, like looking at it, I'm like, oh, okay, it probably is where this curb ends. But because it's such a quick left-right combo, braking points are very hard to keep consistent there when you could be coming off here, or you could be coming off a car link to the right, where you don't have time to set yourself up for like, hey, I'm always going to be like turn 1, right? You're going to be on the left-hand side unless you're fighting somebody, and you can have a very solid singular braking point and just go off the braking point. This is a little bit different because just like corner, 2, depending on how you get off the last corner, can greatly change your braking point. So I do this as feel as well. I know that doesn't really help all that much. Probably 10, 20 feet prior to when this curb starts is probably a decent braking point, and it's really easy to get too deep into this corner. The goal here is to maximize your exit. So this is also cambered, and so you kind of want to. I missed it. I'm a car length wider than I should be, and I could never get back to the right hand side. So ideally, you're on the curb, right where my car is, but on the curb, like and that's going to give you a really good exit off.
Yeah, so half a car to the right and then throttle basically where you are.
Yeah, this corner, I feel like you can get on the throttle earlier than you think you can, and as long as you're on the inside, it'll rotate and stick, and I think it's just because of the camber. If you miss it like I did, you'll see my back end gets a little bit squirrely right there as I'm coming off because I just have too much wheel in it. if you hug the corner on exit, it'll help. It'll help turn the car. And then you can use all this runoff on the left-hand side. In the wet, it's a little bit iffy, but in the dry, there's no problem there. So let me flip back to in-car.
Burkhoff had a question. Yeah, a lot of people do stay inside on this corner, and I think that's a lot to do with the line that they take into the corner. And everybody's line is different. We got to remember that everybody's line is different. We're not going to all take the same racing lines, but at least what I have found, and I'm sure Ed would agree, is that giving yourself that extra room by staying to the left of the track will just allow you to get a better run onto the front, onto the next straight, which is one of those that you can use as a passing zone to get around someone that doesn't have as good of an exit. And Ed, it's funny that you mentioned that the curb ending on the left is a breaking point for you. When I'm looking at the curb that starts on the right, I never really noticed the one that ends on the left.
I never really took note of the one on the right. So let me see here. Oh yeah, they kind of starting at the same time. So
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah,
you can't
for
go
me,
wrong either way.
yeah, for me, since I'm fighting to get back to the left-hand side, I'm looking a little bit left. That's probably why I used that one. But and then on the entry here, yeah, you want to use the camera. I'm taking a look at chat. You kind of can apex a little early, let it swing out about this wide, and then fight to get back. What you don't want to do is just hug the inside corner the whole way around, because you're going to lose a lot of time. Because if we look at, I'm actually curious how this corner is really shaped. It's fairly symmetric, actually. It looks like this part is the radius that's the tightest, and then it kind of opens up. So for me, I try to apex. I guess you can't see my mouse. Damn. Do you see where the red and white curb starts on the left-hand side mid-corner? I try to apex at that location on the right-hand side curb, and then you're like straight shot, full throttle all the way off, and you carry a ton of speed down that straightaway.
If you go back on board in the cockpit, something that has always stuck with me, as you're playing this through, you're going to notice that it's not just a perfectly round inside curb. There's going to be 3 different points that it's going to become more angular. So this would be the first on the right hand side. You'll see that it looks sharp to your eye. Then it flattens out. Then there's another one right here. That would be the second, and then there's going to be another one. That third point where the curb gets tighter again, right here, is when I put my throttle down. That's when I know that I'm going to make the corner, and I can give it as much throttle as I can put down with my right foot.
Yep.
So that's something to keep in mind too. And when you go back and play it faster through, those inconsistencies in the curve become much more apparent. So they're almost like little points within the curb, and there's 3 of them. You're gonna aim for the third one as your exit point. That's when you can get on throttle.
So Eric, now we know that Danny inspects the track with a magnifying glass.
No,
A microscope.
No, I do. Oh,
He does a virtual track walk all the way around. Spends 3 hours. Well, I actually break on the third grass as opposed to the second blade of grass.
I gotta get my steps in for the day.
There you go. Cool. All right, so then now you got off this corner, right? Well, and this one is I'd say it's a good passing opportunity because it's a heavy braking zone, but it's really not, because it's not a great spot to pass, because if you try to send it up the inside, you're probably going to overdrive the corner, and you're going to both end up in the gravel. So while it kind of on paper it looks like a good passing point, in reality it's not really. And to be honest, really the only good passing point at this track is, well, turn 1
Yeah.
There's not a
Yeah,
lot
it's
of good
true.
passing opportunities here that are like safer, opportunities. Most of the corners are medium speed, so if you're following somebody, it's very hard to keep on their bumper to set you up. And the straightaways, except for turn one, aren't really long enough to do anything with it. So very tough track for passing. Coming down into this corner, this is corner number. What is it? Oh, the Dunlap. Is this Dunlap? Yeah, Dunlap. Corner number 8. You actually have a decent braking reference here, and it's this brick curbing on the left-hand side. Usually about the middle of it is where I start braking, at least in my head. So let's see if... there you go. Yep. So at least in cockpit, for me, it looks like about middle. If I actually zoom out and take a look, that's not too bad. It's probably... okay, a quarter of the way down, so not too different. It actually looks like you have this access road on the right hand side too, or on the left, like where the curbing, the excess curb. I don't even know what this is for on the inside.
The parking
Yeah, I
lot
think
on
it's
the
just
left.
like a staging area or something.
Yeah, kind of where that white box is. I don't know if you can see that from in car. So let's see.
You'll
Cover.
probably be able to see the orange marker on the inside barrier. That last orange marker is about where you're braking.
Interesting. Okay.
So it's like halfway, halfway
really
between
saw that one.
halfway between that exit road and where the curbing starts again, on the
Yeah,
on the grasscrete.
And then there's that white marker on the right-hand side on the barrier. The big giant tower is another one.
You break at the big giant tower? That?
No. Just as a reference point, as it passes through your
too.
cockpit and stuff like that.
Yep. And this is a really hard braking zone coming down into here. I like with a lot of trail brake, and really I try to V this off as much as possible, because if you hug the inside the entire way around, the back end's going to step out when you try to get full throttle, as you have a lot of wheel in it. So what I try to do is, did it again, look at that, is drive this, here we go, in a V shape. So I'm going to do like an aerial cam for this. Be a little bit easier to show. So you kind of go in a little bit deeper than you would normally, let it swing out. And this is a little bit extreme. I probably missed it by about a half car length from where I want. But then you kind of V it in a sense of you're able to get back on the throttle and straight line off and keep full throttle for longer, and you get a nicer run off the corner. Dan, is that how you approach this corner too, or do you try to hug it? Or
I tend to take it as a double apex.
okay.
So yeah, like you had mentioned, more of like a V shape. So as I'm braking, I'm aiming towards my first, I guess technically apex, or not technically, but I am aiming right at the inside of that curb, and I'm still braking all the way through it, and then maximizing my exit. And getting a run back up the hill is probably the most important. So I do maximize my exits. So take a shallow line into the corner, allow the car to kind of rise up the banking just a little bit, and get on the power early to rotate the car back around, and use as much of that exit curb as you possibly can.
Yep. I'll play that through. Again, I went a little wide, but you see how it straightens off the exit, and you can get on full throttle sort of sooner. And then I'll do it externally. And I know we're, again, apologies for being late. We're about at an hour, so we got just a few more corners left. So you can see there's a lot of marbles out here, so that's why I said I got a little bit too wide. And then you can use all this runoff curb here. Next up, coming up to the, these are the Schumacher S's, right? If I'm not mistaken. Let's see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
So these are cool corners. I like these. In the GT4s, you can use the curbing on the right a lot. So you can get up on the curb, and for me, what that does is, at least it seems like it lets the car rotate and allows you to, widens the corner a little bit, right? Widens your entry, and then as you're getting off the curb, the car likes to rotate a little bit more, so it allows you to have a better rotation, right? Carry a little bit more speed through. So I get up on the curb, and then I throw it down off the curb, and there's just a hair trail brake there just to settle the nose. And the GT4s, again, varies per car. But the goal here, at least my goal, is to get up on this curb to help the car rotate again. Geez, I wish they'd redesign the little bar there. I always end up clicking the wrong thing. So getting up on this inside curb and get back on the throttle as soon as you can. Like, ideally, you're only lifting for what feels like a split second in the car. So if we go full. In the GT4s, it's a little bit longer. In the GT3s, some cars you can take it flat out. But the goal here is to use all this inside green curb, and then you can use all the outside green curb here, and then obviously maximizing your speed down this straight. So this can be a passing opportunity down to this next corner if somebody messes it up and gets in the gravel either on the inside or outside. So, like, I try to set myself up if I'm behind somebody to be a little bit conservative for if they make a mistake, because if they don't make a mistake, you can't pass in the Schumacher S's. And so, like, I try to maximize my exit speed in case someone makes a mistake, so that I can get a run on them down that straightaway. But this is what it looks like in car.
Oh man, you just taught Burkhoff how to go faster.
That's it. Session over.
Session over. Thank you, everyone. The stream ends here.
Thanks for coming, everybody. So you could, if I play it through full speed too, again, you can just look at the yaw of the car, and you can at least, what feels like to me is it steps out both as you go down off the entry curb and as you get up on the middle curb. And again, for me, that helps turn the car. So. I'm back on the throttle at what looks to be just before that inside curb. There you go. So I'm back on here, and then I'm just full throttle the rest of the way off. So it's really one of those easy in, hard outs.
Yeah, you're definitely utilizing the curb in a way that it induces a more slip angle into the car, and just giving you the rotation that you need to get through the corner without tapping the brakes. If you tap the brakes through Schumacher S's, you can easily lose a couple tenths. And Mike mentioned don't use the left-hand side of the curb. So some cars you can't. One I know of is the KTM gets pretty sketchy.
Nobody
and the Alpine,
drives the KTM.
except for someone. So be mindful of that. If your car is getting upset by that left-hand side curb, then it might be best to avoid it for consistency's sake. But you can certainly use it in a race trim to either help you rotate the car if you're fighting someone and you want a better exit, or if you want to play it safe. So there are a bunch of options going through there.
Yeah, and someone, Leon said in chat, you can, like, at least the cars I've driven, you can use the inside curb on the GT3s sometimes. At least, again, the cars that I've driven, I try not to use it on the entry curb, because that seems to bounce the car with the low ride heights and it gets upset. But you can, like, not as much as you can in the GT4s, but in the GT3s, you can use just a little bit of that curb to help a similar yaw-inducing maneuver. I feel like we need, like, a thing, Eric, on the stream where if Carbon says, like, yaw-induce, or whatever phrase he used, that we need to throw something up that has a bunch of, like, mathematical geometry numbers that comes down. Right?
The hangover, the what's it called?
Oh yeah, when he's like doing math problems.
The beautiful mind hangover edition.
So get that going for the next stream.
Yeah.
So this one here, you have a pretty good reference point in this runoff area and the green curb as it turns green, and then this first curb here. So for me, it feels like I'm like running real close to this 100 sign, and in reality, as you can see, no, it's not that much. It's back right basically as this this extra runoff area starts is when I start braking.
I do want to interject real quick. Probably everybody already knows this, but like just to make sure, there are 3 rotational references that we use in mathematics and in you know whatever in cars when you talk about pitch, yaw, and roll. So pitch is when the front of the car goes down or up, front and back of the car goes down and up. So it's a forward, rearward, and braking and acceleration. Yaw is rotation. So left or right when the front goes left and the rear goes right. So rotation of the car. And then roll is side to side. So if the left side of the car goes up and right side of the car goes down and vice versa. So just in case anyone doesn't know, which I really doubt up there, but pitch in acceleration and braking, yaw and roll in turning usually, because as you turn the car to the left, let's say, it yaws to the left, so the front goes left and the rear goes right, and the right side of the car goes down and the left side of the car goes up. So
Gotcha. Yeah, no, thanks for clarifying. So coming into this corner here, corner number 11, I don't know. I'm not gonna say it. Breaking point again, like right, use this white line as a reference. Usually it's just past that point where you want to start getting on the brakes. You, in the dry, you can use the green runoff area. You can keep your right-hand side tires on the green runoff area, and it kind of does help rotate the car a little bit as well, because the green area doesn't seem to have a ton of grip, and like as you're turning in, it kind of is a little bit slippery. And so I use the green a little bit, and then you can kill this curb on the left-hand side, especially in the GT4s. I don't in this instance because I missed it. But I don't know, Danny, if you do, but you know, it's one of those where it doesn't gain you a ton of time, but it doesn't lose you any time. And so if you know you enter the corner in such a way that you're going to ramp up the curb without a major correction, I just ramp up the curb. In this instance, though, I was a little bit wider than I wanted to be. But this is a fast left-hander. And the goal here, again, treating these next 2 corners as a combo, is to get off this corner in a way. I'm going to try to run through these together, where you don't really want to get off on the green or the runoff area, so that you can fight to get back on the left-hand side. Because this corner, I would say, is probably the most frustrating corner on the track, other than maybe turn 1 from a braking zone perspective. Because this corner here is so easy to overbrake, and then it's so easy to get on the throttle early because you overbroke and you're impatient. And so the goal for this corner here, it's a fast left-hander, kind of like the one we saw, which was corner number 6. Not quite as fast. Not. It looks like it's fairly banked. It might be banked more than corner 6, but yeah, this is more of a transitionary corner where you want to set yourself up well for the right-hander that comes up. So, and this has this corner here, you know, heavy braking, kill the curb if you want. You don't have to though. And then come off the corner. This is probably as wide as I'd come off this corner, because you really want to fight to come back on the left-hand side. And I struggle where I brake harder than I need to. This is sort of like a little dab of the brakes. In GT3s, I think you can even get away with not braking at all and just lifting, but it's a coast, and then you want to do another late apex so that you come off this corner with a lot of momentum and carrying it down the probably what might be the longest straightaway, if you know, because the kink isn't really part of you don't really lift or brake there. I think it's the longest straightaway on the track, or the longest full throttle section, let's put it that way.
Which really makes this probably one of the most important corners of the entire track in terms of time gained and lost.
Yeah, very easy to go too conservative in and then go too hard out and just lose like 3/4 of a second. So what I'll do, I'll play these together as a combo. So here we go. I use all that green exit curbing that you can without getting into the gravel. Go ahead.
Sorry, it's probably good to note that also this is a track cut warning paradise. So being mindful about going too wide over that curb. If you can keep two tires past the red and white curbing, but if you go over that, then it's likely to either result in a warning, or if you're lucky, you'll get a no timed gain. So be mindful of that.
Where are you talking about? Oh,
After this corner,
Okay,
yeah.
let's
So if
see.
you drift out over the curb on the exit,
On the right
On
side.
the right-hand side, yeah.
right here, you can definitely get a track cut warning there, and I only know that from past experience. So
I can second that.
don't be
I
like
don't
me.
think I've ever gotten a track cut there.
Well, and not everybody's perfect, Ed. He also mentioned
Go ahead.
the inside curb going into that corner. Like you said, you don't necessarily gain. Like you're not going to be like, oh, I'm getting half a second through there. But what it will give you is track position. If you're in a passing situation, if you're trying to fight your way around someone, you can adjust your racing line using that curb to set yourself up for the next corner, which is very technical as well. Like you mentioned, it's tough on figuring out where you're going to brake when you're getting back on throttle. So if you can give yourself a little bit of an advantage on the person ahead of you, take that curb so you can position yourself better.
Yep. I'll play this through full speed in car, and then we'll move on to the last two or three corners.
Seems like another high patience corner there, where you really wait to find the correct time to apply the throttle, so you don't go wide and carry that speed through.
For sure. Yep. And then the other thing too, this curb, if I brake a little bit late, I'll tend to use this curb to cut it a little bit so that I don't lose a ton of time and I don't swing out too wide. That's the other time I'll like really get on the curb. Is like if I'm like, crap, I broke a little bit too late, I'll like turn in a little bit early and then just murder the curb on the inside. It gives me a little bit more time to slow down. Yeah, it's not optimal, but it's better than like sliding way wide. So just a option there for you. All right, coming down into the very tricky. Let's see, what corners are they? It's just 11. Oh no, it is 14 and 15.
The Widowmaker.
Yeah, right. For me, it feels like I'm braking just after the 100. So let's play this fun game on where does Ed actually brake. Let's see. Just before the 100. So it feels like in the car I'm after the 100, but based on telemetry, it's before the 100. And kind of like the Schumacher S's, the goal is to slow down early and then go full throttle as soon as you can. And so coming through here, brake hard and then murder two curbs. So. And I feel like that even was a little bit conservative. You can hit them harder. Let's see here. Let's see from the external view what I got. So I believe you can get your right-hand tires up over the, what is this, bollard? Kind of.
Yeah.
Is that? Yeah.
A secondary curbs. I don't know.
Yeah,
I have
yeah.
no idea.
You can get your tires like I wouldn't hit the red thing with the left side of the car, but you can get another tire width over, being okay, and then that straightens your second corner. So this one, I think I hit this one pretty good. I don't think you want to go too far to the right of this one, but anytime you can straighten a complex like this, you'll gain a decent amount of time if you can straighten it up. In the GT4s, you can run over this like I did here fairly aggressively, and the car doesn't get upset too much. And again, the goal is to like get slowed down as quick as you can, and then keep your momentum up, but getting back to the gas as soon as possible. So like my goal here is to, as soon as I slow down, and I'm like, okay, I got my angle right, I got my speed right, I'm just gonna mash the throttle and ideally stay on it this whole second part. So use both curbs very aggressively, and then you can bring it all the way out to the rumble strip on the left or the pavers or whatever. Don't get on the grass. It doesn't slow you down a ton, but I think there is some tire pressure loss, and it's very bumpy. And then it's going to mess up your corner if you get too wide here, because it's hard to get off the grass back onto the track. So, like, this is about as wide as you want to go, playing it a little safe. Danny, any tips for this Widowmaker corner?
I close my eyes.
Oh, okay.
No. 917 mentioned that the Porsche can brake a little later. Yeah, the McLaren is known to have probably one of the worst brakes in the GT4s. I think Jardier mentioned today or yesterday in his stream that it is worse than the Maserati. I don't know if that's necessarily true or not, but that is the case when it comes to the Porsche. But going back to the chicane here, yeah, I've referenced the same points that you do. So after the 100 board, again, keep in mind that you want to be mindful about breaking points other than movable objects on track. I'm 100% guilty of this. You just have to prepare for race situations where incidents happen and there is an opportunity for someone to take that board out. So you can look at coloration in the grass. If the grass color changes to like a brown spot to a green spot, you can look for that. You can look for like that little tower on the right hand side, or the porta potties there, or the orange marker on the barrier. So just keep a good reference point for various objects on the track, just in case something does happen. I know I've dropped a wheel going into this braking zone and have taken out barriers, or those boards. So that's something important to keep note of. And like you said, in GT4s, don't be afraid of taking the curbs pretty aggressively. Just be cautious, and when you're able to and you feel confident on your positioning through the corner, open up your steering wheel as much as you possibly can, because as the car settles in some of those bumps, you can get a tendency to snap oversteer or understeer, depending on the position of your wheel when your car settles. So keep that in mind as well.
I think you might have whispered Maserati 3 times in a row because Cardo appeared in the chat.
I think I did, yeah.
It's a magic word. Danny also admitted to listening to YouTube streamers on earphones while he's doing his track walk, studying every word.
Yeah. I take notes. I have like 3 or 4 different notebooks.
Amounts of notes.
Yes. No.
I started that. I got the track maps printed out, and I started doing notes, and I had a little binder, and everything was color coded. And then my wife saw it and just made fun of me.
Oh
Sent a
no!
picture of it to her friends. And
did she go? This is a video game, right?
I get that all the time. Driving in a long endurance race, I get up and she's like, "I'm like, oh man, I'm so sore." She's like, "What? You just didn't do anything." I was like, You try. You come down here for 6 hours and wrestle a 20 Newton meter wheel, and then you tell me it's not a workout.
20 Newton meters. No.
20 Newton meters. Hey, hit the thing, Eric. Hit the thing.
Yeah.
That's why we're not allowed to call it a game, because then I'm not playing video games. I'm training for my track days.
Exactly.
Oh my god, that's perfect. I'm gonna use that excuse.
All right, cool. So come down here. I'll do this full speed. I think I already did it externally, so we'll do it.
Cardo says that's why he chooses to be single, because clearly it's a choice.
You get a lot more money that way too. Also, don't have kids if you like money.
Yeah.
We'd have like 3 houses by now. It's expensive. Okay, cool. So last corner. Entering here, I enter and brake on the curbing. This is another corner that's very easy to go in to like over brake, and it's also easy to go in too hard. But it's very tempting to like smash the brake and then just have a bunch of maintenance throttle in it, and you're just waiting and waiting and waiting. So this corner, Danny, I'm interested in your viewpoint of it, but this corner for me is I have to constantly think and consciously think to don't stab the brake too hard. It's like a light-ish trail brake in, and then coast, and then wait and wait and wait and wait. Don't hit the wall. Wait a little bit more, and then smash the gas. So I constantly like go in here too shallow, and then I overcompensate and go in there too deep. But like it should be a quick dab of the brake, and then sort of a little bit of trail brake, and then just a waiting until you come off. Very tricky to get right.
Yeah, this
I
corner.
don't have a breaking point here either. This is just one of those where, like, I guess you can kind of use like the pit lane, but it's another feel one for me. Sorry, go ahead, Danny.
Yeah, it is a very tricky corner, and if you play it back through real quick, and slow it down, I'll show you a good breaking point that I use. Be prepared to get the that meme up though. So on the right hand side, you'll notice that the right here. Pause it real quick.
I'm not that fast. Hold on. Reverse.
Yeah, go. Right there. No. A little bit more.
There?
No, back it up just a little bit more.
Hold on.
Eric, are you ready for that meme? Okay, right here. Go ahead and move forward a little bit. A little bit more.
Are you watching on the Discord or are you watching on Twitch?
I'm watching on the Discord.
Okay, so you don't have a lot of that. I was anticipating
right
more.
Here. Okay. So, and this may vary depending on graphic settings in your sim.
Let me guess this. Back in 1997, there was a fire on the track, and it burned. It scorched the grass a little bit, and it still
no.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, but maybe. So if you're looking at the consistency of the grass and the dirt and so on, you'll see what looks like a yellow spot there on the left-hand side. It's pretty noticeable. That's a good point to keep in mind as you're going into the corner for braking. And something that I noticed, gear selection is really hard for this corner too, because in a lot of cars it's in between gears. So like this one, it's in between the third gear on the McLaren and the second gear. I was using second, which allowed me to brake deeper into the corner. And then it's all about focusing on that exit, because you can really maximize the exit curb on this track if you want to. And you want all the speed going into turn one that you can get. So it is a tricky one. You really have to be, like you mentioned, patient. You have to be very patient on the throttle, wait for the car to hook up, and wait for your exit point before you get on the throttle and power out of it. So I do go down to second, and I wait for the car to turn in. I take a little bit of a later apex and just try to maximize that the speed on the front straight.
Gotcha. Play it through full. I slid a little wide there, which maybe lost a tenth or so. And then, yeah, you could use the exit curb. I think in the GT3s, you kind of want to avoid it. Like, if you get a really solid exit off, if you get in the curb, I feel like it, like, micro-triggers the traction control. And I have always seen my Delta draw or go the wrong way anytime I use the curbs. But it's so minor. And the GT4s, it's probably, like Danny said, it's you probably want to use it as long as it's not wet in the GT4s. But
yeah, I will notice that depending on how much camber you have in the car too, that is now something that you have to be mindful of too. That curb does have a tendency to pull the car to one side or the other, depending on how much camber is in your setup. So
the new hot term, tram lining, I think is
tram lining. Whatever.
It's the verb that's been going around like crazy.
Yeah.
Also, don't go left here because you're running the wrong configuration if you go left.
Don't
think-
tell Cardo that. He's still trying.
Oh, okay. Sneak through that barrier and just run it all by. Cool. All right. Let me do an external view here, and then.
And then maybe we can go in car and do a full lap and give people time to ask questions if they have any.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do want to say one thing. Danny mentioned going down to second to assist with braking. So I think here I stay in third. I probably should try second because Danny's way faster than me on this track. So I'll try second next time I do it. GT4s, for the most part, I think fairly across the board, because the brakes are underpowered, you can really use your engine revs to help slow down the car. So I don't think that I know in some of the GT3s, if you downshift too much, or maybe it's car particular, you can get hurt the engine a little bit. The engine turns like yellow, and I guess it's the same on the GT4 cars, where some of them you can, some can't. I know on the 570S you can just mash the downshift and it has downshift protection and it's not going to over rev the engine, but you can really use like quick downshifts like to help slow the car because. Basically, the engine's over revved and it doesn't want to be over revved, so then it's engine braking, right? To help with the weak brakes in the GT4 cars. So you may have some. A lot of times you'll have like a little bit of oversteer induced when you do that. Maybe it's like shocking the rear axle or something, which in some cases can help the car. These things rotate because they kind of drive like bricks. And you might be able to use that to your assistance, but you can really gain a decent amount of time by paying attention to your downshifts and timing it at the right time so that you're maximizing that engine brake.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one thing that you want to try in a practice session before you go to the race. And I noticed, at least for the R8 GT4, the Audi, that was one at Kailami when I was trying it. That certainly did not like the quick downshifts. The Camaro was okay. I remember we never had that issue with the Camaro. The 570S is fine as well. But the Audi is certainly one that you have to look out for. That at least comes to mind.
I'm gonna pop up a Baisden big brain moment here, guys. Practice before the race.
Yeah.
You guys hear that?
Yeah,
there we go.
It does so much. It does so much.
I think it needs less pixels, though.
Oh, no. Oh, did you actually pop it up? You did. Oh, nice.
That's awesome.
We'll save those for Baisden
All right, cool.
big
I'll
brain
play
moments.
this through. I'm going to be completely honest. This isn't one of my best laps. I did some laps earlier today, and I forgot to record the good one, so I hopped back in real quick and got a okay one. The lines are decent, with the exceptions that I called out, but just we'll skip over the time because it's not fantastic.
Yeah. So what was the time? No, I'm joking.
No, we're not covering that. No, it was. I think I had a 205, like low 205. But I had been running a decent amount at this point, so it wasn't. It was like low fuel, but it was after like 10 laps. So,
Ed, why don't you go in car for that first lap?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yep.
Kind of hear that. That's an example of the engine braking when you downshift as early as you can.
I guess while we are watching this, if anybody does have any questions, make sure to throw them in the chat as well, so we can answer those for you too.
Don't go this wide. Just a reminder. And then don't beat this off. Don't go as Well, don't go as wide as I did here either. Sorry, not the best sample lap, but do as I say, not as I do.
I think it still gets everybody in the ballpark, though, and then that's really the goal of this, is just to give some perspective on the lap before we go into the league race on Thursday.
Yep. You can run the Schumacher S's like that. That was a good one. Patience.
Oh man, the patience there is crazy.
It helps, like when you actually enter the corner correctly, it really helps with the patience. When you go in too slow, it's very easy to get back on because you're going to try to make up time. But really, you can't. You just end up losing more time.
So we got, as we go through the last corner here, we got 2-part question.
Oh yeah, I see it. So, yoink.
So
For the second part, it's 27 is ideal on the GT, pretty much all the GT4s.
So just for reference for the VOD, the question being answered is what are ideal pressures for GT4? So that's 27, Ed?
Yeah, my understanding is 27 for everything is the ideal pressure. So you want to go from like 27.3 down to 26.7 because obviously the tire is going to fluctuate based on weather and brake ducts and all that stuff. But usually that's 0.3 above and 0.3 below is okay. When is it worth dropping a gear for better turn in? Almost any time that you're not dropping down into a gear that requires you to go too low of an apex speed. So, like what you don't want to be doing is downshifting for apex, and then as soon as you get your apex, upshifting again, because you're just bouncing off the rev limiter, and you're not going to be anytime you gain by entering the corner by additional engine braking, you're going to just lose mid corner and then all the way down the next straightaway. So I'd say, like when you're in between gears, I mean, try it out both ways. But if you're bouncing off the rev limiter or you're getting on immediately after apex, you probably just want to stay in that higher gear. No, you're not allowed to sleep. I'm looking at chat. I'm going down to the next one. And then under pressure is better. I agree. However, in race situations, when you're on a track that has a lot of potential for pressure loss, you usually want to shoot higher at like say 27.5, and then so over the course of that run that let's say Brands Alton Park, for example, or even Brands Hatch, right? You're going to get pressure loss. So what I usually do is when I'm practicing, I note, okay, I started here, and if I don't hit a curb, it stays. So it's a decent pressure. But then if I start hitting curbs, I know that my right front's going to go down probably in 10 laps by a half PSI. So I'll overfill it like that. Because, as much during the race, you're probably going to go off more during the race than you will in practice. Obviously not as you're learning the track, but like as you're competing and like trying to pass people, and you're like, oh, I'll cut the corner here a little bit, or I'll go off. Maybe you push it lap 1 or 2 a little bit when the pressures are down, and that leaves even more pressure loss if the tires aren't inflated. If you go off track when the tires are still coming up to pressure and temperature, to really make compensation for that. So I'd say, from a grip level, you want to shoot to be a little bit lower, 26.5 to 27. But in reality, if you're going to get some pressure losses, it's better to go up and make sure you account for those losses as you go.
You can also, and Eric, you might want to put that thing back up. Take note of the time of the race too. So, for instance, if you're starting a race at 5 p.m. in the evening, and you know that it's going to be getting colder as the sun starts going down, having more pressure at the start of the race is better off, because you're gonna bleed some of that off as the temps come down, and vice versa. If you're starting at 6 a.m. in the morning and the race is running through 9 or 10 a.m. in game, you're gonna know that you're gonna have overpressure tires by the end of that race, so you can compensate that. And like you mentioned for Alton Park, that's a huge one. I think we were up to like 28 psi just to compensate for some of that pressure loss. So it all depends, and that's the best way to answer it. It depends. Same with the gear shift, or what gear to use for which corner. It depends on car. Each car has its own different gearing. But what I do suggest is try it. You have nothing to lose or gain from trying a different gear in a corner. If you feel like you're not getting out fast enough, try a lower gear. If you feel like your car is not stable enough or it's too high in the rev range, try a higher gear. So it's all a little bit of experimentation.
Yep. And the other thing, just real quick on the pressures, if it's a high-speed track like Spa or Paul Ricard, usually you're better off going a little bit on the higher end of the range. Eric, chime in here, but usually from a rolling resistance perspective and friction, I don't know how well ACC models that, but usually if the tire is underinflated, you can end up it's just more drag, right? More rolling resistance.
Yeah.
If you're a little bit on the higher end of the range, like if you're gonna basically, I guess what I'm trying to say, if you're gonna miss and it's a Paul Ricard or Spa, miss a little bit on the high end. Because you'll with those long straightaways, having a little bit overinflated tire is not a bad thing.
And I guess this is where I struggle as a classic overthinker is, you're talking about rolling resistance. I go, is that actually modeled in the game? I mean, are we actually feeling rolling resistance? Is there, are we going to feel, when do we start worrying about that when we're a tenth off, when we're a half a second off, like that's, I mean, clearly you guys are approaching the limit of a bunch of things. So you're diving deeper into that type of information. Whereas I'm just, as a lower experienced person, trying to find seconds in my range. So I think I'd say, because we have a wide variety of experience in chat, I'd say, if you're still trying to find consistency, just shoot for the 27 tire pressure range and go and focus on lines, braking points, apexes, throttle points coming out of the corner. And then once you are really squeezing out what you can there, then you start going into the next level of detail, whether it's setups or the even further the Danny Baisden grass count. So
hey.
But
I mean, you can really get into it. And you mentioned that the overinflated tire being less rolling resistance. Back in the day, that used to be a known ACC exploit before they came back and patched it. So people would run higher pressure tires in order to gain top end speed on straights. So that is something that they do model and think of in this sim, and it is an exploit. But you're right. We got to stay level headed, and thank you for grounding us there for a little bit.
No, but I mean, that's again, that's information that, I mean, that's something huge. I didn't know that, right? So that's good information to know. I think where Mike was referencing, Burkhoff was referencing lower tire pressures, just in the interest of grip, to not be to not go on the hot side, so you're not losing. I think his idea is that if you're too hot, then you're losing more time than you would be if you're too cold. But now when you add the added complexity of taking into account rolling resistance and pressure loss, then it sounds like the favorable direction is to be slightly above as to slightly below.
Yeah. And I think Ollie G had a question a little while ago that we may have skipped over, but Nürburgring is difficult in the sense that it can be both either favoring for downforce or for top end speed. And this is one that I was working on last night, is trying to determine how much rear wing I was actually wanting to use in the setup for the car. So I went through and I tested max wing, max rake, no wing, no rake, and a few other different options. And What I found, at least for the McLaren, it really capitalized on the top end speed. So I came down to a little bit less downforce and a less aggressive rake for this car. But it all depends. And you got to also keep in mind what your car excels at. There's going to be cars that are going to have that top end speed that you can capitalize on, or like the Camaro that has a lot of mechanical grip. You really want to play into that hand of cards as well. So it depends. All I can say is to try out both and see what works best for you, what's most stable, and what you feel most confident in. But in general, I would say, at least for our case, the lower downforce helped out the setup, at least in my opinion. Granted, Ed drives differently than I do, and he might have some choice words about the setup after the stream.
So what did you change? What did you change between your high downforce setup and your low downforce setup?
Something to keep in mind, and this is one thing that you can really gain stability or really scare yourself with. One of the most impactful settings in ACC setups is that of your downforce and your ride height. The very last menu, as you're clicking through that, the goal is to keep the front end as low as you possibly can without it bottoming out. Granted, we can get into a whole slew of different things to help that from happening, but the general consensus is keep your front end as low as you can to the ground without bottoming out on curbs or bumps, etc. And then adjust your ride height and your rear wing to compensate for the overall stability of the car. So if you're going into a corner and you're noticing that you cannot keep the back end in check and it just wants to slide out on you, bring your ride height down or increase your rear wing. So you're adding downforce and you're taking rake out of the car. Essentially, when you're looking at a wedge, the more you have the front end of the car pointing down, the more downforce you're going to be creating on the front of the car, which is going to rotate. If you lift the front end or lower the rear, it's going to level out the car more, or in some case, cause it to become more negative. And that's going to cause more stability and understeer. So lower on the rear is more stability, higher on the rear is more oversteer, and then you can adjust with your rear wing accordingly. So if you go up on your rear wing, you probably want to go up on your ride height to compensate for some of the understeer that you're creating, and vice versa. Again, it's all about feel and what feels good to you and your driving style. But this is a topic that can easily last hours if we allow it to.
Yeah, and we had a comment. So that was our Baisden Big Brain blurb right there.
Yeah, there it is.
A comment from Leon saying a bit of compensation from the anti-roll bar. So
yeah, so we can get into the mechanical grip too, but it's probably a topic best for another day.
Absolutely. So I think I'm gonna take that opportunity to start ending the stream here. I think some great information yet again from both some of our top drivers at the Trackalicious Sim Racing server, Danny Baisden and Ed Kerstetter. Thank you both. Thanks everyone who hopped on the stream. Thanks to I Am Bull Jim and Dim4KK for the follows. Appreciate you guys, and Welp for the subs. Thank you so much. And hope to see you at our Thursday night league. We have, I think, about 32 people now, 32 drivers. So it's a crazy field. Going to be really exciting. Round 1 at Nürburgring. And following that, we have our Friday night session with Coach Cardo Huesco in the chat. Looking forward to our track walk at Silverstone for the upcoming GT3 race, round 1 at Silverstone with Trackalicious. And don't forget, for those that are here, we do have our monthly Enduros with 949, our Tuesday night MX5 iRacing League with 949, and we actually have a bunch of people hopping on the Daytona 24 this weekend. So They're deep in practice mode right now, putting the heavy sweat gear on, and we will actually be streaming that. So look forward to seeing everyone there, and good luck to all the participants, all the drivers working on that. Ed, Danny, anything you want to add?
No, nothing. Thanks for everybody for coming out. Good.
Well-
Thanks for interacting on the chat, and hopefully y'all learned something.
Well, thank you
Yeah.
again for your time, guys. Appreciate it. And good night, everyone.
Yeah, have a good night. Thanks for
Yeah.
coming by.